All right, so let's dive straight into this because what I've come across feels like it could genuinely reshape everything we think we know about the future of the MCU. We've all been hearing whispers, leaks, and wild speculation about Avengers Doomsday, but now it feels like the pieces are finally starting to come together into something that resembles a real, structured plot. And honestly, if even half of this turns out to be true, then Marvel might actually be on track to deliver one of their most ambitious projects ever. Before we get into it, welcome back to Hollywood Latest News. I'm Luke Harrison, and here we break down all the biggest updates, theories, and leaks from the world of Hollywood, especially when it comes to the superhero universes we love. If you're new here, I want to say a quick thank you for joining us today, and if you're already part of this community, then you know exactly how deep I like to go into these stories. Now, let's not waste any time, because I want to jump directly into what Avengers Doomsday could actually be about, what the recent leaks suggest, and how characters like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the TVA, and even the X-Men could all come together in ways that are both insane and, at the same time, completely logical if you've been following Marvel's multiverse storyline up until now. So here's where it starts. According to these leaks, Avengers, Doomsday is going to be built entirely around the collapse of the multiverse. And when I say collapse, I don't just mean minor incursions or universes brushing up against each other, like we saw in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I'm talking about total destabilization, where timelines start colliding uncontrollably, universes fold in on themselves, and reality itself becomes something that isn't reliable anymore. It's literally a doomsday scenario, and there's one man at the center of it all, Doctor Doom. Now, if you've been paying attention to how Marvel has been building towards Secret Wars, you already know that Doom has to be a central figure. He's one of the most iconic Marvel villains of all time, and his role in the comics during Secret Wars is absolutely legendary. So it makes complete sense that Marvel is setting him up to be the next Thanos-level threat, but with a very different style. Thanos was this godlike force, a cosmic warlord. Doom, on the other hand, is a scientist, a sorcerer, and a ruler all rolled into one. He's not just about raw power, he's about intellect, manipulation, and strategy. One of the most interesting parts of this leak is the suggestion that Doom isn't just attacking for power's sake. Apparently, Doom believes he's the only one who can fix the multiverse. So instead of just being a straightforward villain, he's being framed as this almost twisted savior who's convinced that every other hero is either too weak, too fractured, or too morally compromised to handle what's coming. And that's where the story starts getting really fascinating. But before I dive too deep into Doom himself, let's talk about Spider-Man. Because one of the smaller but really exciting pieces of this leak mentions that filming for Spider-Man 4 is about to kick off soon. And Tom Holland's Peter Parker is expected to debut his next suit publicly, probably during outdoor shooting. That means we could start seeing set leaks, suit reveals, and all kinds of behind-the-scenes images pretty quickly once production really gets underway. Now, the reason I'm bringing Spider-Man into this discussion about Avengers Doomsday is because it looks like Marvel is intentionally setting him up to be a key character in this whole multiversal collapse. Remember how No Way Home ended with Peter completely isolated, stripped of his connections, and stepping into a darker, more independent phase of his story? Well, apparently, that's exactly the version of Spider-Man that Marvel wants to bring into the Avengers-level events. He's no longer the kid sidekick figure. He's going to be one of the emotional anchors in the face of this apocalyptic scenario. And honestly, that tracks. Fans have been waiting for Spider-Man to get his full, grown-up storyline within the MCU, and tying him into the collapse of the multiverse alongside Doom feels like the perfect way to finally cement his place as one of the leaders of this universe. Now, let's pivot to another name that absolutely cannot be ignored in this leak. Doctor Strange. According to what's being said, Strange is actually identified as the one figure across the multiverse who can stand against Doom. But here's the twist. Our Strange from Earth 616 is supposedly trapped in the dark dimension after the events of Multiverse of Madness. So if this leak is true, then Strange is both the key to solving the crisis and at the same time completely unavailable to the heroes who need him most. That, in itself, is a classic storytelling move. It raises the stakes because it forces other characters, maybe Wong, maybe Scarlet Witch if she's alive, maybe even Spider-Man himself, to try to find a way to bring Strange back into play. And you can already imagine the kind of insane visuals and battles that could happen in the dark dimension if the Avengers end up having to mount a rescue mission there. This whole angle also makes sense because Strange has been positioned as the character most tied to the multiverse. He's the one who first toyed with it in No Way Home. He's the one who explored alternate universes in Multiverse of Madness. He's the one who's basically caused and tried to fix a lot of the problems that led us here. So having him be the single individual Doom fears or needs to neutralize feels right. But here's where things really take off. The leak suggests that the TVA, the Time Variance Authority we were introduced to in Loki, is going to play a massive role in this, and not just as background characters or people giving exposition. Apparently, the TVA, the X-Men, and the Avengers all end up collaborating in one massive, desperate alliance to try to stop Doom. And this is where my brain starts to explode. Because if that's true, then it means Marvel is planning to finally integrate the X-Men directly into the mainline MCU story. Not just cameos, not just alternate universe versions like Professor X and Multiverse of Madness, but actual full-scale participation in an Avengers movie. Think about how wild that is for a second. For years, fans have been waiting for the X-Men to join the MCU. And if the first real taste of that is them teaming up with the Avengers and the TVA against Doom and his army of Doombots, then that's an absolute home run of an introduction. It doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel shoehorned. It actually makes narrative sense because when the multiverse is collapsing, when reality itself is at risk, you need every group, every faction, and every hero you can get. And speaking of Doombots, the leak also mentions that Doom won't just be operating as a lone figure. He's apparently building an entire army of Doombots, which are robotic enforcers that can act as both soldiers and, in some cases, nearly unstoppable weapons. If Marvel really goes all out on this, the visuals could be insane. Imagine massive battles where Avengers, X-Men, and TVA operatives are all fighting side by side against endless waves of Doombots while Doom himself pulls the strings behind the scenes. One of the things I find most compelling about this leak is how interconnected everything feels. The TVA ties directly into Loki. Doctor Strange ties directly into the Multiverse of Madness. Spider-Man ties back into No Way Home. The X-Men bring in a whole new chapter of Marvel storytelling. And Doom himself has connections to both the Fantastic Four and potentially to Kang, depending on how Marvel decides to handle the fallout from Jonathan Majors. It really feels like Marvel is trying to weave all these different threads together into something massive, something that can stand up to the hype of Infinity War and Endgame. Of course, we have to remember, these are still leaks and rumors. Nothing is official until Marvel actually announces it, and there's always the possibility that details change during rewrites or production. But the reason I find this particular leak believable is because it actually lines up with the direction Marvel has already been heading in. We know the multiverse is collapsing, we know Doom is coming, we know Strange has been set up as a crucial player, and we know fans have been waiting for the X-Men. All of this feels like the natural culmination of years of storytelling. And just imagine the emotional weight of all this. Picture Spider-Man, isolated and struggling after No Way Home, stepping up to fight alongside the X-Men for the first time. Picture Strange clawing his way back from the dark dimension, battered but determined to face Doom. Picture the TVA, once seen as this almost bureaucratic organization, now on the front lines of the greatest battle in existence. If Marvel executes this properly, it could genuinely recapture the same kind of magic that made Endgame such a powerful finale, while also setting up the next decade of storytelling. So yeah, those are the major details that have come out about Avengers Doomsday. Doom rising as the savior-turned-conqueror, the multiverse collapsing in on itself, Strange being the key but stuck in the dark dimension, Spider-Man evolving into a true leader, the X-Men finally joining the fight, and the TVA standing shoulder to shoulder with the Avengers in a last stand against the Doombots. I'll be honest, I don't know if Marvel can juggle all of this without the story feeling overcrowded. But if they can, then this might be exactly what the MCU needs to reignite fan excitement and deliver another unforgettable cinematic event. And with that, I want to thank you all for watching this breakdown here on Hollywood Latest News. I'm Luke Harrison, and I'd love to hear what you think. Do you believe these leaks? Do you want Doom to be framed as more of a twisted savior than a straightforward villain? And which character are you most excited to see in Avengers Doomsday? If you enjoyed this breakdown, please give the video a like, share it with other Marvel fans, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates and theories. And if you want to directly support our work here, you can also consider dropping a super thanks. Anything up to $20 goes a long way in helping us keep making deep dive videos like this one. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.